Hello and welcome to Audible River. I'm Alan Rice, and I am very happy to have with me renowned alchemist and geomancer, Tommie Mercer. Hello, Tommie. How are you today?
I'm great, Alan. Thanks for inviting me back on again. I appreciate it.
Well, I know that you've got a broad range of knowledge and experience that I don't think we even, barely scratched the surface the last time that we talked. So, one thing that I kind of interested to get your take on and get more information about. I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you're somewhat of an expert on dowsing. Uh, so, am I right about that?
Yeah, that's the base of the work that I started with. Even when I was a small kid, about 12 years old, my dad used to, when we were digging a sewer line, he was a construction. He'd pull out a nut with a string tied to it, and he'd take it over the ground and showed me and my brother where to dig 6 feet down to the sewer pipe. uh So, seriously. So, we got to playing around with that. And then as I got older, and then later on, the talent came out when in the late 70s or so. I noticed that the skill was there, and that as the 80s progressed and then the 90s, this whole work is based on the ability of the empath to douse, the empath being the sentient or the person sensitive to energy. We all are. Uh, Based on that ability, this is the information I presented to you that we found in our research.
So, so you think most people may, but some more than others, have this ability. So, what do you think is happening there when you're doing the dowsing? You got something on the end of a string, and it starts doing things. And do you think that there's a relationship between the object and the person, or do you have any way of describing maybe what's going on with that?
My goodness, that's so funny you would ask. I was doing a soul search in Story, Wyoming for 2099. I have three paragraphs, first paragraph of which you just requested. This is an addendum. Oh, yeah, you're going to love this. This is an addendum to the actual writing of the International Science Conference paper, which is published in 91 at the conference. So let me upgrade you about 10 years later.
Okay.
Funny you should ask. When I do, and I'm going to quote this, when I do the energy readings that I do, the color scans as they're known, I find that the human body has nine major energy centers, the seven known chakras, and one on either end of the spectrum that can be photographed but not seen. That would be the infrared energy controlling the life force or prana as it flows through our body. On the opposite end of the spectrum is the ultraviolet part of our bodies that are made of spirit or the soul of the body. That is to correspond with the solar system. These souls live in manifesting magnetically from the particles of the planet and the energy fields magnetically to nine dimensional planes. On the third dimensional plane, that would be the planet Earth, we find that we work with the yellow or the emotional chakra, coming to this dimension in order to work out all the emotional issues of the transformation of the soul. Many energies and fields and sands and soils and other minerals and elements that are present on the earth and only on the earth that allow us this transgression between soul and spiritual energy. It's teleportation of the magnetic field of the planet into the manifestation of the physical body residing thereon. The teleportation is accomplished by the magnetic field of the Earth, acting as a carrier of the incoming forces. They're crystallized or manifest by magnetic fields. How's that for an answer?
There's a lot going on with that answer. One thing, when I read what you're writing, I mean, it's so. I mean, uh, when I use the word dense, that's what comes. What I mean is dense with information, and,
Yes,
and I'm a little dense to pick it up, so I have to like go back over it and pick it apart. But the nice thing about it is that you say so much in a few words. And so it's like, okay, what is, I mean, there's a whole bunch of information there, but
sure.
but the main impression I'm getting from listening to you is that, is that either by, you were either born this way, trained, maybe both, but you're somewhat of an expert in energy. These days, what we call energy. And,
Yep.
and so people talk about, especially like people with spiritual practices, or maybe they're interested in mysticism. We talk about energy, but it's a really kind of generalized word. But it's something that many of us pick up on, and what you were just talking about is something that is generally unseen, but we know that it's real. But to
Mhm.
you, you're getting into this like it's a very in-depth science with lots of detail, and so
Meta
so
science.
meta
Meta
science.
science.
So
Yeah, there you go.
so how did you get started learning about? I mean, because obviously you have a lot of there's a lot of information there, and those informations are expressed in terms that you have learned somewhere along the way that
Mhm.
encapsulate your understanding. So how did you develop this understanding?
Experiential, basically going out, as you call it, the grassroots. I mean, literally, I would get on my boots and hat and take off and go to a rock supply somewhere, or take off to the Black Hills and do research, or talk at conferences all over the United States for 20 years or so, over 34 radio shows. I traveled constantly and worked with people, learning, and of course, doing my personal readings constantly through the whole experience, learning a whole lot about the human existence. But in the meantime, also learning about the work and how to pick up the energy of the land, and learning, as I just said here momentarily ago, these minerals and elements around us, that's exactly what make us. And we can actually work with those to contend energy to produce the word hello when we walk up together. We're not really solids, we're
Uh-huh.
kind of more fictional. We're more like vibrating a bunch of balls walking up to another bunch of vibrating colored balls, and we're expressing energy between the two. It's all about energy. But how did I learn? Basic training, I think I picked it up in family. As I understand it, it's kind of a family thing. But regarding trying to teach people the energy, that's kind of tough, because every living being, you can't exist. People would learn in the reading. You can't exist without a pathway of learning and knowledge. And once that learning and knowledge pathway is taken and cleared, every living creature on this planet, scans you and knows you and understands you. It's the human pathway that allows us to be manifest in the third dimension, to share information that we are between each other, to heal, you see. But as far as what we call the energy work that folks are doing today, whew, it's a plethora, Alan. It's a plethora.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, okay, to manifest, be able to communicate to each other and to heal.
Yeah.
You mentioned the word heal in all of that.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
what kind of healing are you talking about?
Well, a healing word. You walk up to somebody in deep depression, you say, Spirit loves you, you do well, and give them compassion and teach them how to live, and give them food and give them nourishment. That's healing, and that's one being vibrating with another being in synchronicity to make life come to another. I mean, it's just that simple. You can see it in little animals, little ducks and little babies. They all do that. We all do that. We just do it as humans in a much larger, spinning way. More apparent to each other.
So it's natural for life to care about other life, is what.
Oh, yes. Oh,
And
my.
so
Yeah,
we
break the chain. See what happens if you break the chain.
what do you mean by that? Break the chain.
Become conflicting with one another,
Oh,
different conflict. Yeah, that breaks the chain. And then, of course, that breaks the magnetic field. And then there's all this earth shaking awareness, because the earth is a single magnetic body. I also, by the way, just happen to have that the next paragraph. Boy, this is a fortunate call. I found this paper from '99 on the computer, and it's just perfect. It's only 3 paragraphs, but it's so interesting how it basically synopses how the energy works, like we had before. So.
okay. All right. Do you
Want
want
to
to
go to the
share it?
second paragraph? I'll
Yeah.
give you the second paragraph.
Okay. Okay. Let's yeah, yeah, hit me with
Okay.
it.
All right. Many of you know that the matrices or vortexes that cross every 39 inches of the surface of our planet, and every square inch, every cubic centimeter, have 1850 one direction and 1250 lines of force in the other. The Earth spinning through space in its field of magnetic energy acts much like a large transmitter of radio energy. A field of energy is produced by the single spinning of the planet and the elements and the minerals and the metals, and this causes a radio wave which comes out to us, which gives us the stimulus of intellect or emotion of the yellow chakra. On each side of the 9 planes or planets are different minerals and elements that act as different generators of color, producing different manifestations on the human body. These have most recently been seen on videotapes taken on the astronauts on the planet of the moon. On the moon, noticing that whenever they were outside, there was a blue haze around the body, and these would be blue energies. manifestations of the mental mind, the achievement of mankind. Each individual planet, the Earth, for example, has a unique magnetic field that brings us into consciousness, literally transporting the vibration or vibrating effect on the human body, creating all of our life forces and consciousness. There it is.
All of our life forces and consciousness. So this,
Absolutely.
so the whole consciousness thing. This is the. I mean, the mystery for me, my entire life, is my question over and over: Who am I and what am I? I,
Mm,
I mean, it's like, uh, because I mean, people just say, well, okay, all right, I'm a farmer or whatever, or
yeah.
I'm a banker, or I'm a guy, or I'm married. But to me, that doesn't answer the essential question of like, how did I get here? I didn't make myself. At least I don't think so. I mean, I don't remember doing that. So somehow I came together in this time and space to just be. And
Mm.
to me, the mystery of the biggest mystery is to keep going into what that is. And it seems like there's an endless discovery along that path. And what you're
Oh,
talking about to me is part of that. Is that this energy that we are, that seems to go way beyond the physical manifestation, but it's all part of it. It's all integrated into the moment of our existence. Am I making any sense to you?
it's in the now and the moment. The manifestation is moment to moment, instant to instant. People could be walking down the street and their life force leave the body and they drop to the ground, but the life force keeps moving. There's a lot of things that you see on the internet where there's a fellow who was struck in the face by lightning on the telephone, and he lived an entire life through it, got off the phone, became an entirely new human. I mean, major, massive change. What happened? A monumentally large, massive Earth charge took into the brain, opening up ancient centers that have been, what, we got 2% of that stuff up there working, with the rest on vacation. Here, lightning hits it, and boom, things wake up. He opens up, he becomes a musician, and all this and the other. Well, we can amplify that life force in the energy field by amplifying or collecting earth elements and minerals. Now, about our tools, of course, that we work. For example, the amulets, we place a great deal of life force in the amulets, for example. But what you're talking about, learning about yourself, more importantly, learning from the past, what you were and what your pathway is. There's an exceptionally ancient technique that I rarely share, but once in a moon I will share this on a reading. When somebody will say, God, I wonder what I was in my past lives. Well, how about this? There's something called the BARDS, gaze, Gaze, Bard's gaze,
Uh-huh.
and it's something that I teach. That would basically put me under the alchemist label.
Okay.
But here's the little advice. I'll give you a quick description. A
Yes.
client walks into a room, a dark room, lights one candle while seated before a small table in a comfortable chair, facing a mirror facing their self, placing the fingertip on between the forehead, about 1/2 an inch up. Make a little mark with your finger, then sit down quietly and place your hands on top of one another. And do not at all break in any way, shape, or form your gaze into your eye. Now, reporting back over hundreds, of course, times, people begin seeing previous lives. Oh my gosh. Well, I discovered that eons ago, and it turns out that is actually an antediluvian technique of precognition. In other words, who you were in a forward life. And it works every time. All
Wow.
you got to do, dark room, little candle, mirror, don't lose your, if you look away, it's like ignoring that life, you see. So if you can follow that lifetime, you'll see male, female, all of the entities that you've been. So if you really want to research who you are, Bard's gaze. That's the information I have to share from Spirit for you.
Wow, Bard's gaze. And I'm going to just say this to the listeners. Any of you who try this practice, I would love to hear your results. And so
Wonderful.
that would be great, wouldn't it? Uh,
Wonderful, Alan. Wonderful healing.
yes. So now you mentioned the tools that you make, and you're right.
Mhm.
I do know about your tools, but let's talk about that a little bit and describe
Sure, you bet.
okay, I'm going to tell a story about
Okay,
how I met you. Okay, and it
sure.
relates. I've learned later it relates to your tools because, you and I both used to live in the town of Paradise in California,
Right.
and I went to a Chinese restaurant, and I hadn't met you, and I didn't really know what you looked like, but you had walked into this restaurant, and you were wearing something that was hanging on your chest, and all I could say was, "What is that?" Oh, but it
Yeah.
wasn't. It wasn't like it was any particularly. It wasn't like it was dramatic or it had like a like a crazy design. It was just a little
Yeah.
a triangle of silver with a I think a carnelian on it, and but it was the power that I sensed in this little thing hanging on your chest that got my attention from across the room. I'm like, what on earth is that thing? And so then I think that later you and I ended up at the at the cash register together, checking out, and I just introduced myself and I said, "You got to tell me what's this thing you're wearing." And so, do you
Yeah.
remember that? I mean, but
Oh, yeah. I don't forget odd occurrences. It's so strange that you're just hitting the third paragraph of the paper I talked about.
oh dear.
The tools. I swear, I'm reading it here, right? Seriously, it says Story, Wyoming, 42099. How interesting you would ask about the tools. It specifically talks of the tools, how they work, and what they are.
Okay.
This one's brief. These same energy fields and forces can be kept, held, and trapped, concentrated at great enough quantity to make the quantum leap between the physical and emotional to the spiritual or the world of consciousness. In ancient times, these were done by tools or devices which were sensed by them sensitives or geomancers, the dowsers, to be able to reflect these energies or what they call telluric waves. In certain areas of the earth, healings, manifestations take place of these waves, such as the springs at Lourdes in France or the springs at Baden-Baden, Germany, or other manifestations of healing centers throughout the planet. Now, they are more or less concentrated in most of these areas. We at Star Chamber Products International Technologies take these minerals and elements and metals and produce tools and devices such as our biochromatic integration device using different sands and soils taken from some of these earth energy centers around the earth and placed inside these tools as in circuits or devices, concentrating these magnetic or color energies from around space into the body, producing a more fluid energy around the body, beginning and brightening the aura, increasing the prana or body energy, eliminating the emotional, physical, and spiritual toxins around the body by the heavy vibration or vibrational energies created by these metals or minerals brought together into the tool. As we evolve into a body, one being on one world, these technologies will once again reintegrate us with a common source of energies throughout all of space and the entire universe, the unified field of light and vibration. There's your answer. Man, this is great. I had your answers all ready for you, Alan.
My goodness. I mean, right. Yeah, you must have yeah, what did you do? Do you like did you take like a little out of the body trip and look at my notes or something? It's like
Oh well, it's called synchronicity.
so,
There's
yeah.
just there's, that's it's a you're requesting information that requires going public so that folks can really understand and improve their lives.
Well, but the interesting thing to me is that that these tools work. Now, I know that I mean they're I'm thinking about like holy relics, these kind of things. I'm thinking about like vortex spaces, about places that have energy, like you just mentioned, the springs that around the planet here. But I think that we've, there's this. But it borders on superstition. I think that people will maybe like imbue an object with certain powers, right? And so,
Mhm.
and my experience with that, my thinking about that is that I think a lot of that maybe there's some energy that goes into it, but a lot of that has to do with the belief of the person who's using that object,
Oh, yeah, of course,
right?
of course,
But
yeah.
what you're talking about is something different that you
Mechanical.
mechanical, something
Yeah.
mechanical. You have crafted an object that, and then you are able to imbue it with an energy that stays in the object, and that this object becomes something that can amplify whatever correct or transform a person's personal energy field. Which is this is amazing. Now, another thing that now in shamanism, in certain kinds of mysticism, one of the common instructions is that we are able to direct energies by our thoughts, and that we have some sort of personal control over some set of energies, that whatever we think or whatever we put our attention to, we're causing something to move. Now, are your tools sensitive to any that kind of will direction, or do you have any comment about that?
Well, my project that I've started way back basically involves the physical movement of the human aura, the spirit of the body. I have so many people that have written in wearing the amulets. You're absolutely right. I always say, put your amulet underneath your pillow for 3 nights, and it'll get, be accustomed to the energy. 3 nights, the people don't sleep. They come back with the most outrageous dreams they've ever seen in their life, and they can't sleep really. And all of a sudden, they realize that it's the stones, the vibrational field of the stone, being amplified by the actual field of the metals itself. It's, if you will, a form of magnetism. Yeah, I do some form of Tesla's work, the flat vortexes that one would see in my artisan silversmith pieces. Many generators using and touching the stones, for example, the azure quartz is producing a strong quartz vibration. That's how you and I are talking on this telephone. We're talking because quartz is vibrating through this phone into crystal and going over a circuit and network, and we're 100 or so miles apart. And that's exactly how the tools work. What I do basically is I construct a device, and device, for example, I'll just basically, if you will, manifest upon my workbench in my studio. I simply create the tool from what stones and designs have been given to me by a sketch. Typically in a dream, and I build a tool or design, and then that tool then is manifest into the star tool, the star chamber. And that is the collector. That is the one device tool that, as I read to you, collects 100% of these incoming forces from universal energies into an extraordinarily potent vortex. If you touch the tool, it will physically lift you as far as spirit goes. You
Wow.
won't sleep for 2 days, but you will feel the power from the tool. You felt basically a feeler from the tool. When we put any of the silver or anything on it, it does in fact charge the structure of the metal, because metal is still vibrating electrons. It's still not a solid mass. So the Russians went down to, I don't know, a million power electron microscope with a little wafer of gold. All they see is these balls bouncing around in midair, not touching. Yeah, that's not solid. you
Right.
know. So we're really not solid. We're basically vibrational feeling beings colored by magnetic energy and fields. So if we had a rotten childhood, what when the world is going to help that? You've got to get everything back in synchronicity. Experiential living will do it. Learning, that's what we're here for, is learning. So what I do is I created a series, right now, I don't know, a couple hundred of these, that will actually do a visual. If you take a picture through the Aura cameras, which we have, dramatically alters the whole entire color structure of the aura body. And that is that feeling that you talked about at the cash register.
Right. That I can, yeah, I had this strong sense about this thing that you were wearing. And
Yep,
and
there
like
you
it,
go.
like I said, it was just a little thing. It was like, I mean, if it was just anything else, I wouldn't have noticed it probably. It's just a little piece of
Yeah,
silver. But it was this power about it that was
yeah.
unmistakable that got my attention. Right.
Yeah, I got a whole list of. I think I've tried to keep you up with photographs. The gallery that I do, I send out for people to take a look at the gallery and get a little reaction. Every single time I send out a piece, when I have 5 countries, I have collectors in, of course, in all of the United States, and sold of some of these. Even a Shungite design that they bought in France is wonderful. It a positive and negative throw of the energy. You can change the whole energy field of your body simply by flipping this pendant over around your neck.
Wow.
But
So,
and you visually take a picture of it changing.
wow. I mean, like, are you talking about like Carillion photography?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Wow.
Oh, I have the pictures.
I would love to see the pictures. So,
Sure.
Tommy, if somebody wanted to see examples of your work, I mean, what's the best way for somebody to look you up? I mean, do you have a?
Oh, easy. Tommie Mercer at hotmail.com. Pretty easy.
Oh, Tommie Mercer at hotmail.com, and
Yep, I
just
respond to everything.
write to you, and
Yeah.
then you'll send them whatever they
Whatever they
ask for.
wish. Yeah, you bet. Anything you want, free. Now, the energy I work with is free to all. Basically, the work that I do is more of a put it together in labor and put it in the mail, sort of deal. But I do transduce a lot of energy. Boy, folks will call up from all over and saying, let's do a reading, or I'll offer to do a reading, and if need be, I'll do a gift reading to once in a while. And so you see, when I get done with the reading, I got them nailed, because I have the exact structure of the energy piece to be constructed for them. Sure enough, I send it out, and then they come back, oh, in tears, like, oh, I really felt that. If you take a look at some of those pieces, I've sent it into your messenger. Some of those are pretty stunning, and lately I've noticed that Spirit's moving that up quite a bit, using quite a bit more of incoming energy we're working with. So I see that being reflected in the work that I do and the art that I do.
Oh, interesting. So as your skill grows, there's something
Hmm.
more that gets imbued into the piece
Hmm.
itself by the
Hmm.
design and
Hmm.
your
Hmm.
growing skill in the construction. They're amazing pieces, and I always say, I mean, personally, when I've seen the photographs themselves, speak to me. I mean, it's this is like
Yep.
there's something there's something
Yeah.
more than a picture, and that's
Yep.
another very curious thing about
Yeah.
when it comes to energy sensitivities. I mean, it's like you know I think that people who aren't familiar with this and don't have these kind of experiences, would have a lot of doubt about, well, is that real or not? But
Oh,
I
sure.
I think that one of the things that I've learned about in recent years, when it comes to like quantum mechanics, is this concept of entanglement.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that whole what Einstein called it, spooky action at a distance, and so
Yeah.
and that the Chinese have used this now to create communication satellites. And
Hmm.
just like quickly for anybody listening, this idea of entanglement is that, and there's a lot of different ways that they do it. They take like two uh, one atomic particle, and they make it into two particles, and those two particles, if you whatever you do to one, it happens to
Hmm.
the other one, and it
It's
doesn't.
entrainment. The key word is entrainment. They entrain one another. Biomagnetic entrainment. Now you fit the core of the work. I don't know who you've been talking to read my work, but here it is. You're talking about biomagnetic entrainment. Now, if I'm wearing that tool and I walk up to you and you feel it,
Yes.
that's biomag. You're entrained, or you become aware or feel the energy of the tool. Now, if you walk around a lot of people, then all of a sudden, all these people feel this real nice energy. You've affected those people. You've made them aware of something other than what they're aware of in a higher level. That in turn raises people's spiritual. You see how it works? Spiritual level. It works always like that. Bioentrainment, if I take one of my tools and I place it into the star tool, uh, I send it off into, well, say Japan to a collector. That tool still has the entrainment of the star tool and is pulling full energy by the entrainment. In other words, it has made contact. It is magnetically entrained, has the same identical mechanical energy signature as my charger that actually did the charging. Only it's modified by the stone. Of course, we know that crystal radios, that's how they work. They vibrate a crystal, and that's how they, get their frequency. So every time I put a stone in this circuit, it vibrates in that frequency. Now, then you get into the field of the stones. We know rose quartz is good to your heart, and blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? It is. It's a red and yellow, red and white color. Red's good for energy, and white's good for purity.
Hmm.
What do you think? If I get a green stone, if it's really true green, for example, if it's chrysoprase, it's yellow green. People who have fear wear that and go, my fear went away. Well, yeah, you're being entrained to a fear energy that's being dissipated and cleared. So it's actually biomechanical, but it's bioentrainment to the original charge. No, the charge never leaves. And yes, it can be photographed on the tools.
Bio entrainment. Okay, and so you're talking
Yes.
about like this is what I was just giving the example of,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
with the quantum mechanics, and the thing that I know about that from reading about the whole quantum physics thing is
Right.
that whatever connects these two items, the whatever they don't even know. I mean, the scientists don't know exactly how it works, but
No. No.
the reaction is instantaneous regardless of distance. I
Hmm.
mean, the speed of light does not affect
Nope.
the activity of these entrained objects, and it's it's something that it's beyond what we understand, but they can prove that it's real. That's the
Hmm.
thing, and it's pretty amazing. And so when you get scientists, especially like people who are absolute materialists, that there's nothing beyond what these instruments can measure. Who
That's
have
fine. Yeah,
who
we're an instrument too, you know.
Yes, we're exactly.
Yeah,
Well, see, there you go. I just think that we just don't have the instruments. I mean, we don't have the the kind of instruments that our
yeah.
physical scientists are looking for to prove these other things that others of us, like maybe you and I, are experiencing, that that we can
Not
provide
yet.
actual proof.
Not yeah. Not yet.
Not
Not
yet,
yet.
not yet.
Yeah.
But why not?
Yeah, you see all kinds of gizmos and gadgets. I keep up, constantly keeping up, and I'm like shaking my head, going, "Oh my Lord, it's worse than what's his name, Lurch, when they wanted to go to the door." you know, what has happened? What has happened? No, it's going to become more aware. As we become aware, it's just in training. The more information we give out, or for example, this talk, more people hear this, they're going to become enlightened. See, and they begin at the beginning, and this is a good thing.
You know, Tommy, in the I think you sent me a paper recently, and there was one little quote near the end of it that
Hmm.
that I highlighted, and I kind of I'm going to read this to you. It's just a part of a
Sure.
sentence. Get your reaction to this. And you said, "These are the times of the lifting of the veils of consciousness." That's a big statement. So
Mhm.
can you elaborate on that?
Sure. Have you seen any crop circles lately?
Well, I never actually seen one in person, no. But you know what?
Okay, consciousness. What in the world is this? That's lifting a veil. People, that's so unknown, you see. So here's this veil that people are looking at, and all they're doing is focusing on that veil, and lifting their awareness. And all around the world, people are doing this little group and that little chant. That's not how it goes. The earth itself and the veils. Now, when they put the tattoo down in the field, that's when they put the energy tattoo in the field, as you call them, crop circles, that sets up just like a real big amulet. Okay, you get a picture going there. So once those things are hit the field, the vibration begins, the whole entire earth begins vibrating to the frequency of said crop circle. So slowly but surely, we are in fact receiving information in a vibratory form. So I do dowsing. I work with the dowsing on the crop circle, build and design pieces that are suggested by the fields. People walk into a cash register or a store and say, "My God, I feel that." Well, you know what? I built that. That's how it started, man. That's a fact of life.
Yes. Now,
It's everywhere,
n-
Alan, everywhere.
everywhere. Now,
Yeah.
crop circles themselves are something that
Hmm.
is controversial in for
Hmm.
people to talk about what they actually are, what the origins
Yeah.
are. And at one
Yeah.
point, there was a couple of guys, I think, in England who claimed that they were making them all, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then and then there were other people who come out and said, "I don't think that's possible that you could have made these
No.
because there's things going on here that there's no way that you
Yeah.
could have done." Um,
Yeah.
so. So the origin is still, I guess, somewhat a mystery, but maybe you have something more to say about that. What?
When I comment on the crop circles, I think of walking into a tattoo shop and looking at that brand new tattoo exemplifying exactly who I am and what I mean.
Oh,
You see? So if I want a tattoo and I want to get the attention of the planet, all I have to do is drop a little device, a ball of light, all pre-programmed. You can do that these days with lasers. For example, I can go and get a whole picture of the wall just by putting in a program on a laser, can I not?
right. Yes, yes.
Yeah. Well, that just didn't fall out of the sky. That had to come from sources of knowledge about building said laser using a concentrated beam of light to be able to make a pattern on a wall. What's the difference in a wheat field? So I see it as advanced technology of sharing knowledge and information, a form of art, but it's a form of intelligent art.
Oh yeah.
When you send an actual photograph of the artist down and people look at it, they say, "Oh, that looks like alien," and then
Well,
they go about their daily work. They didn't see it. They saw it, but they didn't see it. They didn't feel it.
Right.
So I worked with the Lakota and Sioux Indians when I was up in Wyoming. I was there for 19 years doing a lot of research work. You've probably read all the data on it. I would do sweats. I would go up to Medicine Mountain, and they would talk of this thing. How these things all got started, and how the people would receive their souls, and how they would work through life. And the guidance was wonderful. But to experience this work, for example, that I do, it is in a purely spiritual nature. It's a very clear energy, very clear intent, and it's a use of metascience techniques that haven't been used for well over 30 to 40,000 years. Here's an upgrade for you. You know these big boxes they've been finding in Egypt under the pyramid that weigh what, 100 tons? And now they just dug one up, a new one, and they slid the top off. And sure enough, there was objects in there and something that looked like gold but wasn't gold. All of these were talismans. All of these were amulets. In a 100-ton lid on this box, shaved down right to the smoothness of your household mirror, my friend, in
Wow.
black basalt, which sets off a slight radioactive field, which concentrates Earth forces, and the list goes on. That is a major generator. So somebody somewhere was putting water, pure water, into these large boxes containing pure energy and feeding this to a point for something. So we're working on that. That's something I'm real focused about, very much so. A large, heavy energy generation device or center. So the more we find out about that, the more we know. We know that there was a huge destruction, a rotation of the planet, setting out the systems. They lost a huge amount of technology. So you hit me where my current studies are.
Wow. So now you mentioned this is Egyptian ancient Egyptian
Right,
technology you're
right.
talking about.
Mhm,
Now you
mhm,
also I think that you've mentioned to me before that you have studied with the Rosicrucians who have an amazing
mhm, mhm.
amazing
Yep,
museum in San Jose of I mean they
yep,
have one of the best collections of Egyptian
yep.
artifacts and
Since 76,
since
1976. Yeah.
76. So you studied with them, or you can
Oh,
tell me a
yeah.
little bit about the your what you've learned from the Rosicrucians, how it's affected your work.
Well, from the monographs, of course, they're actually not allowed. It's more of it's not actually a secret society. Just they just simply do not recommend you sharing the literal information of the series of monographs. It's taken over many, many, many years introducing you into a basic form of science called metascience. This is a well above and beyond science, but what they're showing you is antediluvian science. They're showing you science when science was Anunnaki, when the original work came down. I see things in there that I use and worked with construction later on in my life and demonstrated that their techniques are valid. The thing is, they fragment it over the years using the method of just the booklets that they use. But when it gets through the whole course, you do realize that it's a whole entire primer of not only our being on the planet, but how we're here, why we're here, and how we're made. Oh my goodness! So that was groundwork, where it's basically where I would say a start, and then discovering the minerals and the minerals' effect on my body as a sentient, as an empath. Years ago in 19, I think it was 78 or so, I picked up a little terminated quartz crystal from a little rock shop and put them right between my first and middle finger. My whole body lit up. I'm like, what is this? So I started studying this thing about the energy fields, went through the crystals. They're manifesting the vibration. It's like adjusting a radio wave. You're on channel 6 and you turn the channel over to 8, and there's a crystal in there that moves to a different crystal that makes it simple.
Right.
That's how we operate, Alan. When you feel energy from another person, you're changing, the shifting the crystal. When you have different people, different energy. So it's hard sometimes for folks to disseminate their own personality from others. That's where the work comes in of who am I? Why am I? You see, what is my purpose on the earth? To learn, to become part of the energy that we give that are given to us, the knowledge. It's incredible. I mean, I just touched the surface with what I've done.
So that sounds a little bit like Jungian's individuation.
Hmm.
What you were talking about there. I
I
mean,
suppose.
you suppose, right? Yeah. So, but I mean, there's a lot of different ways of approaching this problem of finding out who we really are,
Yeah,
and then expressing that. I mean, a way of
sure,
getting to that center of our
sure.
being. But it always involves. Um, a willful consciousness. It involves
Hmm.
decisions on the part of
Hmm.
individuals,
Hmm.
and even like what you're talking about with the tools. I mean, there are things that can happen to us they give us opportunities,
Sure.
but it's always up to us to take that opportunity and to
Right.
make that step
Sure.
with the new energy. Wow. So now the lifting of the veil. Oh, I want to circle back a little bit. I have a
Oh, please.
curiosity question about the crop circles, and now have have you now when you douse these crop circles, are you dowsing pictures of them, or have you ever actually visited a site, or how does that work? When you're doing that?
Well, the start tool that I talk about, one of the chargers, has a monograph of the crop circle on top of it. Now, that crop circle was given about 2 years after I built and designed the tool. Then there was the crop circle with this design that I'd put on top of the tool.
Whoa.
Knowing where the, well, yeah, that's people that know the work know very well how the work works. It's coming in from all directions. Basically, I download these things. I'm just basically a downloader. Whatever information is coming through that whatever source feels necessary, yeah, I would be the element in the work that I do in my specific field of work. I do elemental work like in the jewelry, for example, bringing in energy fields that will actually download. If you will, if you take a little eyeball look and close one, you're going to see a miniature crop circle. I'll give you an example. And then when you walk in the door of the restaurant, it's really going to hit your socks because, yeah, see, I've imbued that tool, right? And that's what you experience. That tool was imbued with crop, if you will, the same energy as the crop circle. It's the same force, the same energy. We basically entrained it because we are learning from a tool that I did build. It is not a mechanical tool. It's a, you may have seen it. It's a pad, maybe a foot square and about an inch thick or so,
Hmm.
but it contains hundreds of elements and circuitries and different designs and devices, simple stone patterns and materials and metals, for example. When the Tibetan monks were up in paradise, I don't know if you were there when they were there, but
Yeah, it was.
I
Yeah.
took my, oh, okay, I took my tool up there and I put it on he says, what is this? I put it on his hands. He goes, this is the universe. I go, excuse me? He goes, all of the energy in the universe comes through this. He says, how did you do this? I said, stones and sticks and stones, basically minerals I've collected around. He says, it's a pure energy. And it's kind of amazed me. I actually have photographs of him playing with it. But point being is, interesting that it's the whole earth in one small space. You can actually concentrate these energies. So when a crop circle comes down, it manifests, and then my tool, of course, resonates on this thing. And then whatever, if I want to hypercharge or build a tool, I simply place the finished work onto the start tool to let it hypercharge. It takes about 2 days, and it will absolutely vibrate physically in your hand for a
W-
fact.
Wow. And
So,
I came to your studio once to pick up a piece that you had made, and
yeah.
you showed me some recent pieces that you had made, and you had like in a little, like a little metal case, or and you opened it up,
Mhm.
and I just could hardly look at it because whatever was emanating from that case, it was like the Ark of the Covenant. I'm like, oh my God, close that thing.
Yeah, that must have been one of the more potent tools.
Yeah, right.
Well, we designed for pulling the amount of power required to
Yes.
finish the design. I am a graduate jewelry designer. It's 3 years at the GIA, Gemological Institute of America in Santa Monica, of course. 52 years making metal objects. I started very early. For 45 of those, I was a master goldsmith, building, design, casting, fabrication, wax carving, for example, all of the jewelry in Chico, California, from the stores. If you bought it, I built it, for example, in my little studio up in Paradise. I retired from that a few years later, about 5 or 6 years ago, and began working with these amulets. And wow, since then, really being able to download these energies and the skills of all that time that I've spent, as an expert in the other field, it really shows. So some of these tools I'm getting feedback on these are life changing,
Yeah.
amazing. So I'm much better apparently in contact with the original forces. These tools are coming from dreams. It's as simple as saying that.
Wow, this is amazing, Tommy. So yes, so all these tools that you make. I mean, these are your creations. Like you're saying that that you're getting guidance in dreams.
Yep,
You're seeing the
yep,
patterns, and you are
yep,
making them with your own hands from the skills that you've
yep.
developed over a lifetime.
Oh yeah,
Oh my,
lifetime.
my God! And I would think that anybody listening, you would do well to reach out to Tommie, and I'm going to put in the program notes your email address so people can contact you,
Sure, great.
and if they want to get more information or some pictures of what
You bet.
of your.
Happy to share.
Well,
Always happy.
well, hey, Tom, I'm very happy that we got together and had this conversation today. This has been amazing. I learned so much. I know we could just go on and on. There's so much that we could share endlessly.
Okay. Okay.
But I'm gonna call it for now.
Mhm.
But is there anything that you'd like to add before we go?
Well, I really appreciate, the support through all of the years of all my clients, thousands of people around the world, and the joy of being able to share what I've discovered. And the reality, the thing that actually is the best, is that things actually work. It's not a concept, an idea. It's a workable pattern. That's the most important thing to people. They see this and that and the other technique and this and breathing. All you have to do is focus, get into the work. But there's more coming. I can say that.
Oh my goodness! And looking forward to it, Tommy
Yes.
Tommy Mercer. And that is all for this episode of Audible River. We know that we have listeners all over the world, and wherever you are on this wonderful planet, we would love to know what you think about our podcast. So please email us at audibleriverpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.